no one is wise enough. No nation is important enough. No human interest is precious enough to justify the wholesale destruction and murder which constitute the science of war.
Good afternoon, and welcome to Community Church. It is good to have you all here today. This is the last in a 5-part series celebrating our 200th anniversary. As we come to the end of the year, we're closing it out. We're talking about peacemaking, waging peace. And so we begin. Welcome to our house of worship, our hall of prayer and song and justice. Welcome to our shared home of faith, at once new and very old. New in our being, new in the way everything is new. Every moment leaves the last behind. Old in our bones, old in the way everything is old, connected indefinitely to all that has gone before. We are celebrating 200 years of being church, of doing church, of defining and imagining and rediscovering church. We are looking to our history to find the path into our future. We are moving into our future propelled by centuries of history behind us. Welcome to our house of worship, our hall of prayer and song and justice, at once old and very new. Please rise in body or in spirit. Let's sing together our opening hymn. Everyone knows it, Down by the Riverside.
lay down my sword and shield. Gonna lay down and I ain't gonna. Gonna lay down my burden. Gonna shake hands around the world. Gonna
The UU liturgy always begins with fire. Join me in reciting our chalice lighting. We light the chalice, the fire that guides and unites our church, kindling the flame of love that burns at the center of our faith. Our unison affirmation, please join. Unto the Church Universal, which is the depository of all ancient wisdom and the school of all modern thought, which recognizes in all prophets a harmony, in all scriptures a unity, and through all dispensations a continuity, which abjures all that separates and divides, and always magnifies humanity and peace, which seeks truth in freedom, justice in love, and individual discipline in social duty, and which shall make of all persons one beloved community. Unto this church and unto all its members, known and unknown throughout the world, we pledge the allegiance of our hands and hearts. So we greet each other on Sundays as a part of our liturgy. We turn to our neighbor, whether they are strangers or old friends, and we welcome them into this, our shared space. It's our way of saying our spiritual path is communal, relational, and we are in this together. Not just friendly, it's how we ground ourselves in this space with each other. Please take a moment and greet your neighbor.
My message is.
Esther,
While you were going through all of this. I can see you. Did you deliver? I'm sure you delivered every message. How are you?
Please find your way back to your seats as we sing our children up to their classes. And I just want to make a quick note, even though most of the children just went upstairs, there are still some kids in this room to which we say, hello, and it's great to have you here. We encourage children to be their full selves, which sometimes means that they're loud, for which we are grateful.
Yes, here at Community Church, we bring our whole selves every Sunday, and every day we are together, and it is good. It is good to be with you all on this windy day. I heard the wind we're getting up to 34 miles an hour, which is a lot. It's faster than most of the buses, I think, in this city. For now. But whether you are coming here from just around the corner, or you took 3 trains and one of those buses to get here, or whether you are joining us online or watching this service years after the fact through the power of the internet, we are glad you are here. We are glad you are here with all of your joys and all of your sorrows, with all of your layers. It is good to be together. We'll now enter into a moment of silent reflection as we listen to the sound of the chime.
Let us pray. Spirit of life, Mother of earth, God of the sun and stars, we bring our attention now to you who lives in every breath and through whom we have our being. We bring with us today our fears, aches and pains, our anxieties. Grant us your peace now, that we might become peacemakers in a time of war and hatred. Ground us firmly in your peace that passes all understanding, and ease our troubled minds. Spirit of life, Mother of earth, God of the sun and stars, we come together in this place, both in person and online, in response to the grace and love we experience, and for which we are deeply grateful. We call to mind our struggle and our pain, our great difficulties, our little inconveniences. And still our minds are heavy, carrying not only our burdens, but also all of those in need of our blessing. Spirit, bear these burdens for us, that while we try and fail to remember all who need us, you remember all, that in your mind and your heart, none are ever forgotten. Spirit, help us rise now to the needs of our moment. Guide our hands to do your work in the world. Guide our minds to hold dearly all who need us now more than ever. Guide our bodies according to your will, that we might use our gifts, our abilities, our capacity, in service to all of your children. May our leaders guide us to a new age of peace. May generosity become our national watchword. And may empathy become our collective prayer. For we know that where charity and love are, there you are as well. Spirit of life, Mother of earth, God of the sun and stars, wrap yourself around all of us, that we may too become your arms of compassion. For we know that where charity and love are, there you are as well. All are now invited in the spirit of hope and love and community to join us in lighting a candle. Ours is a legacy of peacemaking. May these fires symbolize not only the fire of the torch we must carry, but of the fire that we kindle in ourselves and spread throughout the world. Amen.
Hey y'all. We're celebrating 200 years of peacemaking at Community Church. And so I just wanted to share a story about my trip to Israel, Palestine last year, which isn't a particularly encouraging story, but I do think brings us into some of the tensions of our moment as we try to carry forward our legacy into new territories. The first person we met on this trip was a woman named Cheska, an Israeli who was trying to raise awareness about the demolition of Palestinian homes in Jerusalem. She brought us to the highest point looking over the city, and she pointed out all the different areas. This is where Jewish folks live, Palestinians, Armenians. And she produced this big printout of a map from the municipal website, the E1 master plan, that showed the program for how through 30 years, as many Palestinians would be pushed out of Jerusalem as possible. She delineated all the different mechanisms by which they would achieve that, the favorite among them being straight up house demolitions. She brought us down into the neighborhoods to show us. We went into a neighborhood called Silwan, which is a poor neighborhood. It kind of looks like a favela. Everything packed in, and there's this sort of valley, but things also, the units go up the side of a hill. We walked through the rubble. We watched as kids played soccer. One of our Palestinian tour guides kind of like called out to one of these piles of rubble, and this man came out to say hi. That's where he lives, right? His house was demolished, but he has nowhere else to go. And up on that hill, these units, they have no real recourse, no safety mechanisms, but they have these eyes painted on the sides. These eyes that look down on what's happening. They say, we are watching. We are witnesses to the injustice. More and more Israeli flags encroach until eventually perhaps there will be none there. We went to a refugee camp, the Ida refugee camp, to have dinner with mothers of children with severe disabilities who, of course, don't have the resources to care for their children. And as we were leaving dinner, we walked past this massive mural of historic Palestine. And these people saw us, could tell obviously we were visitors, and were very excited, motioned us over. And each of them took turns pointing to the place where they were from, right in what is now Israel, to the villages that they were expelled from in 1948, their parents, their grandparents. And they were so excited to tell us, to show us that they were something more than refugees, that they were proud people with histories, with lineages, with homes that they hoped they would someday return to. We worshiped with Christians in Bethlehem, participating in a liturgy that's 2,000 years old. And as we were leaving the church on the bus, we saw these armored personnel carriers. We saw soldiers fully outfitted with assault rifles, masks on, and saw that just in front of them was a line of maybe a dozen or so Palestinian men of all ages, dressed in regular clothing, but who had been forced onto their knees with their hands behind their backs, with their heads bowed forward, rifles prodding into their backs, their pockets turned out, the soldiers screaming at them. We saw those soldiers everywhere, stopping us at checkpoints for hours at a time, rushing onto the bus with their rifles pointed at us, demanding documentation, dragging Palestinians off of our bus when we had them, refusing to let us leave Palestinian towns with Palestinians. We saw that everywhere. The apartheid of it, the different roads that we could take depending on what license plate we had, right? Understanding that these folks were being arrested, were being subjected to a military court that has a 99% conviction rate, while the settlers have access to civil courts, of course. We went to Hebron, a place where you could see the effect of this so clearly. These empty these streets, ghost town. It used to be this thriving economic and cultural center where now Palestinians are locked in their own homes. The only people moving through the streets are the settlers who walk around with their rifles. Also a retinue of soldiers to protect them. There's a big billboard, flashy with a happy, smiling settler advertising settlement opportunities in Hebron. We went out to the countryside too. We went to the Tent of Nations, which is the property of Daoud and his family. And our guide was telling us as we went onto his property, because we drove into this kind of valley surrounded by these hills where this massive settlement has been installed. And they were talking about, the challenges that Daoud faces, that he can't collect rainwater, he can't dig his own well. He tried, and occupation forces came and filled it with concrete. Meanwhile, the settlement has swimming pools, has all the electricity they could ever want, has schools. You can actually hear the voices of kids playing, coming down across the valley. Meanwhile, his little kind of compound on this hill in the middle of the valley, the settlers have come and put an RV right on the edge of his property, just to show we're right here. We're coming for you, too. They blast country music all night. They burn down his crops and steal his animals. But as you get to the top of his property, there's this big stone with words painted over the top of it, brightly, visibly, that say, "We refuse to be enemies." That's a powerful thing. But as I looked up at the settlement that rose above us and looked like a cresting wave about to crash, as I looked beyond and saw on the horizon the smoke coming up from Gaza, as I thought about everything I had seen that week, I wondered if Daoud's graciousness, if our guide's prayerfulness, if Cheska's solidarity, if our witness could save Palestine.
As many of you know, our assistant music director, Matt Pod, is also an amazing arranger. And he arranges many of the songs that you hear us do, he arranges for us. And that means he takes wonderful words and sets them into a beautiful setting so that you can understand the depth of the lyric even more. This song that we're singing today was not only arranged by Matt Pod, but it was written by him as well. It is one of my favorite arrangements of his, and I offer this gift to you today.
Does anyone else need to just take a breath? Thank you. So today we're talking about our history of peacemaking. Which, to be clear, is an ambitious goal in 15 minutes, because we are quite the peacemaker church. And our history is long and proud. And now, coming to the 5th of this sermon series, I realize I have left far more on the cutting room floor than I've actually brought here to these sermons. So it is now my intention to one day, in my fantasy, take a sabbatical and write this book. Because I think we need, this history is so good. It's so rich, and I'm about to not do it justice. I also challenged myself, oddly, to not have texts when I'm preaching these sermons. I don't know, I guess you get to a certain age and think you need to make your life more interesting, so here I am. The thing is, when I started to think about peacemaking, the question of war doesn't make sense to me outside of the question of justice. War really is violence in response to embedded injustice, entrenched injustice that cannot move, when people feel like there's nothing else to do and they turn to violence. So if we want to talk about war, we have to talk about injustice. We have to talk about economic injustice, racial injustice. We have to talk about civil liberties, what people have access to, what people are denied, because all of that is the precursor to the violence that becomes war. When this church started, I'm also going to just make a note that this is my 5th, so I've told a lot of stories. I'm not going to retell the stories. So it's gonna, sometimes I'm jumping over stuff because I did that already. But I will note, I said it last time, that the church, our first church, burned down. It went on fire twice. And that was in response to its abolitionist stance. So right from the beginning, the church is built and the fire takes it down because of our stance, because we were on the edge of a conversation that needed to happen. But if we're honest, our early church, other than being sort of on the stance of abolition, we weren't particularly bold. The church as a whole was sort of mellow. It was liberal, so it's kind of stood on the left for what that meant at the time. But I find the ministers to be kind of soft. They didn't really admonish people. I mean, they talked about wealth disparity, but they didn't talk about economic injustice. They sort of said things like, hoarding isn't good, but didn't say, you with $1 billion, it's time to share. So they were soft early on. But then we move on. Now, let me just say this. The ministers were soft. But I think the congregation wasn't. I think the congregation might have been a step before the ministers, at least in the early days. There was something called I wrote it down because I'd never heard of it before, the New York Vigilance Committee. Has anyone heard of this? I had never heard of it. You have? Well, of course you have. It's like the woman who knows everything. I should just call her and be like, tell me what I should say in my sermon today. So this committee started out as part of the Underground Railroad. It was the organizational committee in the city that was trying to help people who had escaped their enslavement and to do what they could on the floor, on the ground here. around the Fugitive Slave Act, around helping people to get free. There is no sign at all that ministers of this church ever were part of that committee, but there is a lot of sign that congregants were, that people in the congregation were acting as individuals doing work of justice in the city. And I feel like this was one of those times when like the people were leading and the leaders were following. The other thing that I have learned about the 19th century here at what used to be the Church of the Messiah is that the women were the ones at the front of every line. The women's auxiliary here moved things forward. In fact, in the 19th century, when this church, I told this story about this church almost going broke, what happened is that the women's auxiliary got together, they literally knocked on doors of this neighborhood with their hands out and said, the church is going to close, so we would like you to give us some money. And they raised almost all the money this church needed. The women of this church were very much the powerhouse. They were the activists. They were the ones who were moving things forward. They had no vote. In the public sphere, they had no say. They had no voice, but they had their bodies, and the women of this congregation used that to move us forward. We do see, starting in 1849, the church getting a little more bold. You know, I realized in doing this, there's really interesting parallel between what's happening now and what happened starting in 1850. Do you know the Fugitive Slave Act? Most of you do, no, a few. The general idea of the Fugitive Slave Act was that if you were an enslaved person, the theoretical idea was if you were an enslaved person and you were south of the Mason-Dixon line, but you somehow made it to the north of the Mason-Dixon line, you could now live free. The federal government decided that that is not okay, and that if you are spotted north of the Mason-Dixon line, anybody can capture you and bring you back. That's the idea. The reality is that then started bounty hunters all over the North. Now, how do you prove that you are not an escaped slave? There's almost no way to do that. So if you are black and you are north of the Mason-Dixon line, bounty hunters, white people, could kidnap you, capture you or your children, and bring you back across the border, even if you were born free. This morning I thought, oh my God, this is what's happening with ICE. This is what we're doing. We have these bounty hunters, fully masked, on our streets, somehow legally kidnapping people and making them prove that they should be free, which they can almost never do because they're not actually given a trial or a court or lawyers or anything. So unless they have their passport on them, so that was just note to self. Here we are again. Anyway, the Fugitive Slave Act kicked things into gear in this church. People here started to make bolder stands, stronger stands. I'm not going to get into this too much because I'm afraid of taking up too much time, but I will say that we did have one minister, Robert Collier, who was a conductor on the Underground Railroad. He brought people into his home, kept them safe, moved them on from there. There were people here who were doing their best to stand on the lines of justice, not only around racial justice, but economic justice. This congregation got bolder and bolder in its stance around labor rights, around children's labor, around women's labor. In particular, this congregation, the members of this church, started taking some bold stands around public education because they realized that if you could get a public education system up to the age of 12, that children, and made it compulsory and free, that children would have to go to school and wouldn't be sent to warehouses. So this congregation got active in building a public education system. Now I just want to note, because everything comes around, in the moment this seemed wildly impossible. How could you ever fund an education system for a city this big, this many people, and require every child to go? It seemed way out of the realm of what was possible from ages 5 to 12. And then they did it. So when we talk today about free childcare and feel like there's no way we could ever afford it, we have done this before. We've done it before, we've done it bigger and better. So let's not be so afraid of adding a little something to make people's lives better. This church has been actively working to make people's lives better. We also took some strong anti-war stands in that time. We have Collier saying, "War ends nothing but life." And then he said, "Let no man be silent while his country sins." And the other, "We have sought glory and found guilt." So when John Haynes Holmes showed up here, it wasn't out of nowhere. And we talk a lot about this church sort of changing and all of a sudden being a different thing. It wasn't a different thing. He was more of the same. He was bigger and bolder and faster and stronger, but he was more of the same. Savage before him did powerful pro-union work, big economic justice work, had settlement houses, was doing everything he could, poured himself into justice making in this city. He wrote a poem. He wrote a lot of economic justice poetry. Here's one: "Work, work, work. My labor never flags. And what are its wages? A bed of straw, a crust of bread, and some rags." He fought for a 5-day work week. He fought for an 8-hour day. He fought for things that nobody thought would ever happen here. And they happened. The church was behind him. The ministers were trying their best to use their power to move things forward. And then came John Haynes Holmes. Again, not out of nowhere. Holmes showed up here a radical. This is a church that called a radical. They did it on purpose, and they got what they asked for. He was famously anti-war. He made community church a hub of social reform. He understood church as public institution, which I would have to agree with. Church as public institution, here to serve the whole city. He said, "The measure of a society is the fate of the poorest within it." And after Holmes was Don Harrington. Don Harrington is a fascinating figure. If you are a student of Unitarian Universalism, right, if you go to seminary like some of our people, you will think Don Harrington made a really huge mistake. You'll learn all about his mistake, and I'm not going to deny he made a really huge mistake. And his mistake was that in the moment, Black Unitarian Universalists sought to have a Black caucus that was well funded. I'm making a very complicated story short, but he opposed it. And he opposed it. When you learn about it, you think, who is this guy? Like, how does he have so much power? How is it possible that one white guy can stop a major, important move in this denomination? And why? Why would he? But the more I know about Don Harrington, the more I understand. Don Harrington was a minister in this church. This is a multiracial, multicultural, multi-generational church. His experience was that people can work together, they can get along. He was, long before anyone else, he was anti-apartheid. Long before anyone was talking about that, he was talking about things happening in Africa and saying we have to find ways to bring unity, to bring community, to be in covenant with each other. His whole thing was, look, it works. Look around. People can pray together. They can live together. They can work together. We don't need something separate. He fought with all he had to stop it. He was ridiculously wrong. He was dangerously wrong. Someone should have stopped him and all the people behind him, many of whom I'm sure belonged to this church. Because the Black Caucus would have been a really good thing. But I have to say, as one of his successors, I actually sort of understand at least the impulse to look for unity and ways for people to work together. That's a simplification of a complicated problem. But I don't want his legacy to just be his mistake. I will also say that he was very political. He founded the Liberal Party here in New York. He ran for lieutenant governor with FDR Jr., his son. He worked hard for economic justice. He worked hard for democratic justice. He was successful in 100 ways. And unfortunately, in the denomination, he will be remembered for the way in which he failed. And then Bruce Southworth showed up. And Bruce extended this conversation. So until this time, peacemaking in this church was about economic justice and racial justice and war. And Bruce added some really cool things. He showed up in 1982 when the AIDS crisis was reaching its peak. He added LGBTQ rights to our list of things we need to work on. He worked for justice for people across the board, so LGBTQ teenagers, LGBTQ people who did not have homes. He worked for rent control, for tenants' rights. He poured himself into housing issues. He was one of the election monitors for the first free election in South Africa. He was quieter about his justice work, but he was also a leader in it. He said, the moral test of a city is the dignity with which it treats its poorest members. He also, in talking about prisons, said a just society cannot imprison its way to peace or safety. So we have a legacy. We have a history. And I want to just close with this. The story isn't over, right? What's going to happen in 100 years? What are they going to say about us? Who are they going to say we were? Who are our people and what are they doing? Are they creating a network to stop ICE from kidnapping children? I'd like them to say yes. Yes, they did that. Were they on the front lines of racial justice work in the city? I'd like them to say yes, they were doing that. Were they fighting for economic justice? Were they fighting for the poor? Were they fighting food insecurity? Were they fighting for their dream of a multiracial, multicultural, multi-generational society living together in peace? I would like them to say yes, they did that. I think that the land is set out for us. We have behind us 200 years of people who have done for us what maybe we could never have done for ourselves, but they have set it up for us so that we can be our best. We can design the world we dream about as long as we know we have the wind at our back and each other at our side. Everything can be ours. This city can become the dream if only we put ourselves forward to make it happen.
And so once again, my dear Johnny, my dear friend, and so once again, you are fighting us all. And when I ask you why, you raise your sticks and cry, and I fall. Oh, my friend, how did you come to trade the fiddle for the drum? You say I have turned like the enemies you've earned, but I can remember all the good things you are. And so I ask you, please, can I help you find the peace and the stars? Oh, my friend, what time is this to trade the handshake for the fist? And so once again, oh, America, my friend, and so once again, you are fighting us all. And when we ask you why, you raise your sticks and cry, and we fall. Oh, my friend, how did you come to trade the fiddle for the drum? You say we have turned like the enemies you've earned, but we can remember all the good things you are. And so we ask you, please, can we help you find the peace and the star? Oh, my friend, we have all come to fear the beating of your drum.
Had some winter coats you could bring. It's going to be a cold winter, and there are people who don't have anywhere warm to go. So what we can bring would be really useful. There's an organ dedication here. The Church of the Incarnation, you should know the people here have been very, very good to us. Very good to us, amazing. But they just got their new organ, and they're very excited about it, and they're having a big dedication at 4 o'clock, and they would like me to invite everyone here who might be willing and interested in hearing them play their new organ and to dedicate it to please come. And after this, Connor and I are heading over to 10 Park, and Jody and a few of you, we're going to have a Path to Membership class, which is not necessarily about membership. It might be, but it's really about, like, how does community church work, and can I get more involved, or how do I get more involved, or how do I meet some people, or how do I understand what all this is? And anyone who is new here or even been around for a while and still doesn't know how things work, you are welcome to join us. Just meet Connor at the door and we'll walk over. And so we extinguish our chalice with words that come to us from Reverend Bruce Southworth. May we be bold in our living and our loving, in our giving and in our forgiving, so that the world awaited becomes more nearly the world attained. Let's extinguish our chalice. We send our light into the world where healing and hope are needed. Let us go to serve this world and one another. Good to be with you. Let's sing along our closing song.
Got peace like a river. Got peace. I've got peace like joy like a fountain. I've got love like an ocean.